What's going on? Here in the Beat Sessions, the place for all things music and where we do the listening for you. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's kick things off for the week of June 9th with Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit and this new record, Weathervanes. This is his 9th studio album, his 6th credited with the 400 Unit, and his follow-up to 2021's Georgia Blue. It's a cool collection of covers. He tweeted that if Joe Biden won Georgia in the 2020 election, that he would put together the album for charity. Jason, certainly the kind of man to put his money where his mouth is. So great project. He's an Alabama guy, but paying homage to a state with an excellent history of music. My family lives out there. I love visiting Georgia. Talk about the rich traditions of R&B and soul and rock and roll. It informs so much of his music, and it's really cool the way that Georgia Blue highlights the diverse array of artists and music that has come out of the state over the years. So love that collection. If you want to go back to original material, you have to go all the way back to 2020's Reunions. Phenomenal record, but it came out before the channel started. And I think at the time that Georgia Blue dropped, I was focused. I had something going where I was only wanting to discuss original compositions, nothing involving covers. So I'm thrilled to talk about Jason Isbell. I think that this guy is probably the best singer-songwriter of the last decade. Certainly one of the top tier singer-songwriters that has been out there. Taking that torch from a guy, I'd argue, that had it the decade before in Ryan Adams. You read about their friendship. You read about the way that Ryan helped him, get into rehab, get his life together after experiencing problems with drug abuse and with alcohol abuse. I can't imagine what the music landscape would sound like without Jason Isbell. And I don't think he gets discussed enough as well. So a couple months ago when Music Box dropped an episode on him, that was amazing. I think that really is a testament to the impact that he's having out there. Whether or not he's being talked about, everybody listens to this guy. And how can you not? I'd argue that so many artists that peak very early on in their career, Jason's a guy that has continued to get better and better with every record that he puts out. I think a big part of it comes from music being such a foundation of his upbringing. Talks about spending a lot of time with his paternal grandfather and uncle, and they're the ones that taught him how to play a number of instruments. But I feel like when that is ingrained to you at such a young age, and it becomes a part of you as you continue to go out into the world, his maturity with the compositions, nuance is a subject that comes up so much on this channel, and I think he's even said it's what separates the good from the great, and he's at that level of great when it comes to the nuance. This whole outfit, the 400 Unit, all these musicians are so stellar. But you talk about the production of this record and the way that there's so much care put into it. All these instruments are allowed to do their thing, to be a highlight, or whatever it is that Jason's trying to do with the composition. I feel like in a lot of ways, you read about the recording sessions with this guy in Highway 61. I feel like Jason is the type of guy that he brings in such talented people that he trusts. Hey, this is the idea that I have for the song. This is direction I want to take it in. This is what I want it to sound like. And then he kind of just lets all of these actors do their own thing. Jimbo Hart, I think, is an amazing bass player. Derry DeBorgia, I would argue, is the highlight for me on this thing. Amazing on the keys, but I've always loved the accordion. I feel like it's been fairly prominent on quite a few records recently, and I'm just a sucker for it. And it's an amazing component to this record. Anytime it's hitting a composition, I love what Derry's doing on this thing. Amanda, her work on the fiddle, her harmonies with Jason sound stellar. Everybody's showing up on this record and really delivering. You talk about him maturing as an artist, the music, the lyrics too, the character studies, the picture that he's able to paint, just putting his listener right there into the context of the story and allowing what's going on with that character to resonate with pretty much every listener on a universal level. It's what makes him so outstanding. One of the many things that makes him so outstanding and one of the greats right now. This record, it's pretty easy to argue that musically and lyrically, this is his best effort to date. And I love that. I love that he continues to push himself and to, I might argue to some degree that Amanda would probably say that his drive to perfection is almost a drive towards madness, but I appreciate the man fine tuning and perfecting his craft, identifying, where he's been on previous records, and how he wants to improve and where he wants to go based on his observations of those records. He's so stellar to listen to. His voice sounds amazing on this record. It's it's a pretty typical criticism to hear, I feel like, these days. Some might argue that the vocals are a little too bright on this thing. I don't think any of the vocal production on this thing is hurting at all. I think the vocal production, I think all the production on the instrumentation, again, everything shines through the way it's meant to shine through in these compositions. And it kicks off with Death Wish. Did you ever love a woman with a death wish? Shit, the last one. Yeah. Um, but I love the way that this album just, it kicks right off and rolls into that. And this is an intense song. It's a really intense moment, an intense character study. Light strum on the electric guitar, light drums. I dig a lot of the work on a lot of the drum work on this record. A lot of use of brushes. So there's this, soft presence with those brushes, but great driving tempo. It's a great dynamic that's working on this album. But I like the vocal to open on this thing. The acoustic guitar works in, build in the drum and the bass, and everything works into a groove right about a minute and a half in. Dark strings work their way on in, and you talk about nuances. This song is just a killer example of just all those little pieces working their way in, and the instrumentation is so playful. It's just so much fun to listen to, and it's going to be for a number of listens for years to come, I think. King of Oklahoma is your second track. You get this arpeggiated riff, which I love that about the guitar work on this record. I'm really feeling a Big Bird's influence. Just think of that band. Great psychedelic rock outfit. But it's you get these arpeggiated riffs, bit of the strings that work in, but then that disappears to usher in the verse. And it's like, what I love is that you just know that those strings are going to come back, but it's like, how are they going to work their way back in? And it's such a treat. It's definitely the highlight of this song. I like the way that like the chorus in this song takes this big anthemic approach. It's kind of this mid-tempo turn. Love story that's pretty interesting. Solo to finish on this thing in the coda. It's a nice track. Strawberry Woman, your third song. Light folk, country, acoustic feel. I love the guitars to open on this thing. Perfect texture to complement the vocal melody, I feel, on this track. It's just going to keep this feel. And, there's a handful of these songs that talk about nuance. Some of them don't get too complicated. They don't get too intricate. Strawberry Woman's one of those tracks where it finds its place and just kind of rolls with that, and I dig that about it. Great harmonica component. There's a little bit of like Jew's harp that works in here, it sounds like. Accordion. Love the track. Middle of the Morning is your fourth song. Got this breezy, soft rock feel, mid-tempo acoustic riff with this chill drive. I really like the drive of this song. The vocal melody is huge on this thing. Bit of a Fleetwood Mac feel. It was one of the things I immediately noticed on this track. Dig the way the piano works in. It's going to lead into your B-side opener, Save the World. Moody electric riff. I love the driving bass drum that's carrying the song. More guitar texture ushers in the vocal. The verses are going to remain kind of light. Chorus explodes, though. It's a pretty dark story on this one, too. I'd say that this is one of the darker moments, but worth checking out as far as, he talks about that third person perspective, this song being about gun violence. I think that it's one that very difficult territory to navigate, but he does it so well. And it's a fine example of why he's at the top of his game. And I think a lot of people would argue that. If You Insist is your sixth track. I love a gorgeous intro on this song. Light brushes, but I love the driving tempo that they bring. Guitars and the fiddle, just excellent Americana feel on this track. The fiddle through this composition, certainly a highlight. It's Amanda just absolutely killing it on that thing there. And there's this bridge, just organ, fiddle, great build on all these instruments that come together. It's a great way to lead into your B-side closer, Cast Iron Skillet. This might be my favorite track on the record. I love the imagery. Don't wash the cast iron skillet. That analogy is so good, and you read along with the lyrics. A big part of what informs Jason's music is the kind of bittersweet feeling that many of us, I think, feel for our hometown oftentimes. Jason, obviously expressing his political leanings, coming from Alabama, coming from a more conservative spot. I know that there's that struggle there. Something that I've struggled with a little bit. I know a lot of people that have struggled with that. Just growing up and becoming a different person than, I guess, the type of person that you might generally typecast in your hometown. So there's I like him because there's that perspective of also being like overly judgmental in that regard, and it's like, who am I to maybe criticize on that? It's an interesting dynamic, but I think he explores it really well. The accordion and the fiddle to open this thing up are outstanding. Pretty acoustic vocal takeover. Simple bass works in. Really a fine song. When We Were Close is going to kick off your C-side. Big change of pace. Big rockin' electric guitars to open this thing up. I love the Heartland country rock feel. Really feeling his buddy Ryan Adams on this song, and just a damn good rock and roll track, if I can be honest about it. Volunteer is your ninth song. Soft drums, breezy acoustic, gorgeous prominent strings that I really like the way that those are the highlight of the track. Amanda's vocal here I think is exceptional. Like the harmonies there. And what a story that is told in this track as well. Vestavia Hills is your 10th track. It's going to close out the C-side. Mellow Americana and accordion hits just right. Get this complementary electric guitar. And I love all the electric nuance that works in, like great texturing with the guitars there, closing off your C-side. And it is going to lead to your D-side opener, White Beretta. Great, more of a personal character study coming from Jason on this one. Simple alternative country rock arrangement though, but the story, the highlight here I think, and one of those tracks where talking about how nuance didn't really take over a whole lot, storytelling really being the focal point on this. This Ain't It is your penultimate track. Love the big country feel on this song. Great rock and feel. It just settles into a nice groove. Working with some congas on this thing. Lots of excellent solo work. This is just a big rock and roll thing. It seems a bit indulgent, but in all the right ways, and I love it for that reason. And then your final track, another big one, Miles. Big Neil Young and Crazy Horse feel on this song, and he talks about Neil Young being a big influence on him. Just like the big chunky mid-tempo jam. This thing reminds me of Down by the River a lot, but the breakdown is really cool. Song builds back to close. Man, there have been a lot of solid records in the last couple of months. I feel like it's been, from week to week, kind of sporadic, but the last few weeks, really exceptional. This week, I think this album definitely is the highlight with everything that's going on. Big time vinyl, please, on this thing. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope that this is worth your time and money. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel. Do all the things to help us blow this project up in 2023. And stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We will see you next time on the Beat Sessions.